Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Class Zero Soldiers Podcast. Not a numbered episode. This is actually a mini episode going over just the Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase. I'm your host, Zero.exe, but you can call me Zero. And like always, I'm joined by my good friend, Soldier by Night. So how's it going, man? What are your first reactions to that?
Well, Zero, I'm just happy. Well, first off, to be here in this mini episode, and it was pretty good. It was a nice way to kind of wrap things up for June and for lack of E3, as we've already covered. But yeah, I would rate it overall a B, and we can get into why.
I'm with you there. I would probably lean more towards an A-. I thought the pacing was good outside of that first 4 minutes, which covered Monster Hunter Rise's Sunbreak DLC. And they've shown the Sunbreak DLC off quite a bit over the last month, and even leading up to the Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase. And of course, it's out now, so it wasn't very far away from the trailer. I just didn't think that it needed an extra 4 minutes of runtime to talk about it, but it was there. You know, Capcom's a big supporter, one of the biggest supporters for third-party software on Nintendo Switch, so of course they're going to get a little bit of priority when it comes to their airtime on Directs.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you end up paying for, I guess, as Capcom with all the money they've been throwing at the Resident Evil stuff and everything. I'm sure this was just a necessary thing. I mean, Rise is a big hit. That was totally acceptable. I liked the big surprise thereafter with Nier. I think that was the moment where probably every Square Enix / Kingdom Hearts fan was like, man, they could have totally made. And that's the argument that will always come up, especially after, I mean, come on, Nier Automata is a game that no one really imagined.
Probably shouldn't run on the Switch, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I know with enough time they were able to pull it off, and some of the gameplay that they showed was solid, and it seems like it's going to be running at I think 60 frames.
I believe they actually revealed that in a press release after it was announced. One of the developers, it will run at a locked 1080 when docked and a locked 720 in handheld with a 30 frames per second, supposedly stable. But from a technical standpoint, it's a very impressive port, and I kind of put it up there with like the Doom Eternals of the world and the No Man's Sky, where it's like, wow, they got this to run on the Switch. Like it's not one of those that I would have expected.
Same with like The Witcher and...
Yeah, Witcher 3, that's another one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. I do remember now the metrics, the 1080p, and yeah, that makes sense. I think that's also why, fans were a bit hurt with the whole Kingdom Hearts thing and this. We're always, anytime we see a good Square Enix game come out, it's going to be like that. That's just going to happen. But I am excited that they're throwing in some extra DLC to kind of, motivate players if they've already played it before, or, reward players who haven't that are on the Switch. So that's exciting. I'm really happy about that.
For sure. Day one buy, and it's in a calendar slot that's not really filled right now. It's in that October section where there's really not a lot going on from a first party standpoint.
Yeah.
So, and Pokemon's probably going to be in the November. So the big release in September is Splatoon. And then we don't really know much about October or November or the holiday season. So it's in a good spot too. I think it's going to do well. I imagine it'll sell at least 1 million, maybe 2 million copies on the Switch. I mean, it's got potential. It's been highly requested. It's one of those ports that a lot of people wanted on the Switch, and I think it'll do well. It's a day one purchase for me.
Do you know if it's going to be a physical or digital only, or?
I believe it's going to have a physical version. I didn't hear anything saying it'd be digital only. That'd be kind of weird for a game like that to be digital only, though.
That's true. I know it's going to be a larger game, so they're probably going to put in the money for the cart.
It does look like it is going to be physical. And the other big surprise about this wasn't talked about in the Direct itself, but the pricing for it, it's only going to be $40.
Which is incredible, because that's the Game of the Year edition, and it's on Switch, so now you can play it portably. There's just so many good reasons, and hopefully this leads to even Nier Replicant being brought over to it.
Oh yeah, I can almost guarantee they're going to bring Replicant over. Unless Nier Automata somehow just completely bombs on the Switch, I would expect by next E3 season we hear an announcement for Replicant.
Heck yeah.
The door's been kicked open.
Yeah, with some mighty heels, if you will. Yeah, so what's next?
They had, right after this, they kind of do like a hot and cold cadence with a lot of their announcements. They'll do something like super hype, and they'll give you a chance to catch your breath with some lower end announcements. We had this thing called Lorelei and the Laser Eyes show up right after this. Not much to say about it. They didn't really show much. It looks strange. It looks like one of those kind of weird indie games. Maybe something to keep an eye on once they show some gameplay. But then right after that, they went right back to hot. And we got an announcement from Konami. They're still making games and not just pachinko machines. Super Bomberman R2.
Did you play?
I did.
You did. I remember when you got your Switch. It was a launch title.
It was. That's one of the 3 games I got on launch, along with Breath of the Wild. Fast RMX was the other one. It was that F-Zero clone that was like a remastered version of the Wii U game. Excellent game, by the way. But yeah, that's one of those games I got at launch. It wasn't great, Super Bomberman R, the first one, mainly for its lack of content, but surprisingly, Konami updated it throughout its life with more content later, and they had a bunch of their characters in Bomberman 4, so you could play as like Simon Belmont, Pyramid Head from Silent Hill, so it was super cool to see all that. Since this is the second one, I'm sure they're going to go much bigger this time around, and hopefully get higher than like a 72 on Metacritic like the first game. But it's cool to see it get a sequel, you know? We don't really get a whole lot of these classic PS1 era franchise games anymore, like the Crashes and the Spyros and the Bomberman. So I'm happy. It's pretty cool to see that there.
Me too. Hopefully they bring out, maybe a new Ape Escape, since you were speaking about, kind of PlayStation and some classics and stuff like that. I know it's more platforming, but I think that'd be really fun. Just to be honest, the last Bomberman game I've played was the N64 Bomberman.
I think it was just called Bomberman 64, right?
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. Multiplayer was great, and I enjoyed it. I used to play the previous titles. I believe it was on the NES I played, and some of the the ones that came after that. But yeah, I always looking forward to just something new and refreshing, especially if they're just making a sequel of something a bit new, because we don't always get sequels. Some things just kind of, I know that wasn't a big seller and it became kind of cheap and stuff, so I'm glad, and I'm hoping that they have enough content this time around to keep people engaged with the game.
Yeah, to be fair, the first Bomberman R game, it served its purpose. It was just to have something available at launch for people to play when they were getting tired of Breath of the Wild. So yeah, it did its job, and like you said, since it's iterating on something that's already there on the platform, I imagine it'll have more content. The only thing they really announced in the trailer was that there's this new like 16 player mode where it's like a 1v15, almost kind of like a battle royale, but not quite. But right after this, then they decided to keep it going with the hot announcements. So a lot of classic franchises showed up in this mini direct. We had Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection show up, and I was super excited to see this. I knew it was coming. It had to come eventually. They've done a collection of every other Mega Man series to this point, so naturally the Battle Network games were next, and we got them. It looks great. These are some of my favorite games on the Game Boy Advance, so it's really cool to see those coming back all in one collection. So I was surprised to hear that it's coming out next year, but hey, this year's pretty packed, so why not?
Yeah, no, it was a good time. I think for this to be announced, and the wait is a bit long. I'll agree with that. I mean, this isn't a bad deal either, right?
So there's 10 games in the collection, and 3, 4, and 5 each had 2 versions, like Pokemon. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Excuse me. 3, 4, 5, and 6 all had 2 versions, so that's where the other 4 games are coming from.
Oh, okay, that makes way more sense. I thought it was just 1 through 3 that we were getting in the Legacy Collection. Okay.
Well, yes and no. You're not technically wrong, because if you do buy them digitally, you can get just the first handful of games in the collection, and it's basically just half the price. They split it right down the middle, and you can buy the second collection later, or just only get the first collection. So, for example, with the Mega Man X Legacy Collection, I only bought the first one because that's the one that had X1 through 4, which are the ones that I really cared about, and I just never bothered for the second half of the collection. So that's the way they're going to do it this time as well. It's just Capcom being Capcom. It's just them doing their thing. But hey, I'm happy. These are games I'm excited about and can't wait to get back into them again.
Yeah, me too. And even just going further into the next part of this, we've got Pac Man World Repack.
Here's one that came out of nowhere.
Yeah. But again, kind of in that whole classic, we're like in an arcade here, right? We've got these classics that are coming back with, at least Pac Man World Repack, having a new coat of paint, and I know that there's a bit more of like a 3D platforming feel to Pac Man World. That's pretty exciting. I know this one's a bit different than what normal Pac-Mans are, but I was a PC player before I was a console player officially, back when I was a kid, and I always enjoyed the 3D Pac-Man actually a lot.
It was different, and that was in that generation, the PS1 era, with the late 90s and early 2000s, where 3D platformers were just kind of finding their legs, and I do have fond memories of Pac Man World, so if the price is right, I'll pick this one up later, and if I'm not mistaken, this one comes out pretty soon. I think it was set up for like an August release.
Okay, that's not too bad.
And I don't know what the pricing of it is. I think it's...
hopefully it's like a 20,
I think that's another one. Yeah, something like that.
Because I feel like that's okay, since it's not a brand new game. It would be all right for it to be maybe $20-$25 or something like that.
Yeah, it's set to be $30 on all consoles.
That's fair. I could easily see that going down in price by the holidays.
Oh, for sure. August 26th. So yeah, right at the end of the summer. I mean, that's reasonable price. If the game runs well, if it's a good remake, then yeah, I could see that doing pretty well. And then they showed something called Blanc, which is like this weird black and white. I don't even know what to call it, but it's more of an indie game where it's like I think they said it was a deer and a fox cub. It's like a co-op journey type of deal, and there's no text in it, so it's good for kids to enjoy. And then after that, we got Return to Monkey Island, which is another one of those old school franchises a lot of people wanted to see back. Mixed reactions to it though, mainly because of the art style. It was very different than what I think a lot of people expected. Nonetheless, that it is getting the remake treatment.
It must be doing really well if they're making however many. I think now, isn't this like the third? I think this is the third or fourth game.
I don't know anything about Monkey Island. I was never a big point-and-click adventure type of guy, but I know there's a dedicated fan base for it. So I'm happy for you guys. You got a new game in the series, so hopefully it's good when it comes out.
Even though I haven't played some of the Monkey Island games, Return to Monkey Island looks to be super faithful to what Monkey Island is loved for. And, I know it's more point-and-click and everything, but it's always had a really faithful, loyal fan base that loves the games. And if that's coming out, I know the music is really good for it. So like I've listened to some of those tracks and they're pretty bopping. But yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, not bad. We're getting a lot of nostalgia in this direct. And then we also had some new things. We had Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope get its release date revealed. Unfortunately, it did get leaked a day before, but it's still super cool to see it so close to completion. It comes out October 20th, I believe, which, along with Nier Automata, are the only two really big titles that I know about that's a release in October. The game looks great. The first one was already one of the better looking games on Switch, and that was a launch year title, I think, 2017 or 2018. So they're building on that. It looks like the combat has a lot more nuance to it this time around. So I own the first game, but I have not actually gotten into playing it. Just one of those that's on my backlog. But I'll definitely have to check out Sparks of Hope, especially if it has a demo, so I can just kind of dip my toes into it without financially committing to it. But it looks good.
Yeah, I haven't played any of those.
Well, this is the second one. You haven't missed too much.
Okay.
But they did have a DLC for the first one, which was a big expansion with Donkey Kong. So 2.5.
Yeah, I remember them mentioning something about like Bowser kind of joining the fray as like an ally or something to that.
Any game where you get to have Bowser on your team is already a good game.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Bowser. He's great. And you know what? I mean, if Ubisoft is really knocking it out of the park with these, I'm glad that they're coming out with more of them and that Nintendo's working with them and letting them do their thing. This is a great thing for them. So, yeah.
I agree. I mean, if some of the best Mario RPGs are ones where Bowser's on the team. That is my final parting comment on Sparks of Hope. I'm sure it's going to review well, especially if it plays as good as the trailer showed and all the extra tidbits in the combat. It's going to do well. It's going to be a great game. And then, but right after that, we had a bit of a surprise. This was from Cygames, who is the mostly a mobile developer. They did Dragalia Lost for Nintendo. They also did Shadowverse. That's theirs.
Okay.
Grand Blue Fantasy. That's the other big one.
Okay.
And Princess Connect. So these are huge mobile games, and they have a very distinct art style. But they showed off a game called Little Noah Scion of Paradise, which is kind of like a 2D Metroidvania roguelike. And the art style looks really cool, and you like collect these little monsters, and it almost gave me a bit of a Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories vibe, where your attacks are the little monsters, and then it shuffles the deck after you use each one. It shadow dropped, actually. This is a game that came out right after it. I did get a chance to play it. One of my friends actually had it and let me play it on their Switch. It's a really solid game. It's a game I could definitely sink my teeth into, and it's only $15, so it's one of those smaller releases, but really cool, interesting, different concept, and pretty fun game.
That sounds great. I mean, all those games are successful that they've made on mobile and whatnot. So, hey, I don't know much about this one. Was it a demo then that you played?
No, he had the full game. He went and just dropped the 15 to check it out, and it's worth it. I'm definitely planning on picking it up myself sometime soon. The art style of it reminds me a lot of like Bravely Default and like the Team Asano designs, where it's like the chibi looking characters. Noah, the main character, she looks like she was drawn from the same team. I don't know if that is the case, but it's very, very similar.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, what about Railgrade, huh? Fulfill all your railroad fantasies. Not those. Get your mind out of the gutter.
Whoa. That was a grade A comment. I don't know. This is definitely in that camp of, SimCity and those kind of, what is it? I want to say not like
simulations.
Yeah, but there's definitely it's like a management kind of style game where
micromanagement simulator.
For all those bosses out there,
just love to take their work home with them, huh?
Yeah. That's, if anything, they're home when they go to work. So, but yeah, I don't know. It looked cool because it was running on the Switch, and like it seems like a fun, kind of like I think of like Civ 6 and those types of games. I feel like that's the crowd that this attracts. And if you love railroads and whatnot and trains and that kind of a style game, I think this is probably for you. But no, I'm glad there's variety in here. Seeing that was just kind of cool. I was like, oh yeah, I'm probably not going to play that, but I know someone will enjoy it.
That's kind of the camp I'm in. Cool for enthusiasts that are into that, but not for me. Right after that, we had another very different type of game, RPG Time: The Legend of Wright. This had a very similar vibe to a game that was revealed in the Devolver Direct that we talked about, Plucky Squire.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that a little bit, just in terms of the general like concept of it, except in this one, it's just like a by-the-numbers type of RPG with a lot of mini-games, and it's all like in this hand-drawn art style, like a kid drawing in a journal, like just drawing their ideas for a game in a journal, so it's different.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. But yeah, Sonic Frontiers. Let's talk about that.
How about that trailer, huh? Yeah, like that was probably the best trailer that they've shown for the game, and better than any bit of marketing that they've done up to this point for the game. This marketing campaign has just baffled me in the way they've tried to present this game. And the best trailer is the one we got most recently. And it even showed off some music, too. We got a little bit of guitar shredding in there when it was mostly just Kroger brand Breath of the Wild music before.
That's funny. Yeah, I enjoyed the different aspects that they actually, spun at us this time around, because it actually made me interested, and they had that entire, I could be saying this completely wrong, but I think it's like an infinity zone or something.
Cyberspace, I believe?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And where you're just kind of going into these other zones, and maybe that's where we can get a bit more variety to mix things up, because I know that was a big complaint. Just things looking kind of bland and not really like overall the game not having as much of an identity as it could have. But then again, maybe that's kind of what they're going for, and that is their identity. So just because it's not a familiar one that a lot of people know, maybe that's why this is kind of like, I don't know. The more I look into Sonic Frontiers, the more I realize like maybe this is a style of game that we haven't exactly had before, so it might be hard to compare it to because all we do is compare, this game to that, and judging it by our experiences and what we see and what we like. So maybe this is something that is brand new.
And I think what's cool about it is they're basically trying to make the hub world between the main Sonic stages, which are like the cyber ones. They're trying to make it bigger and more interactive. So like it almost reminds me of what they did in Skyward Sword for Zelda, where half of the dungeon is just the overworld trying to get to the dungeon, and then the dungeons themselves are a little bit shorter because it's the other half of the puzzle. So it feels like Sonic Frontiers is kind of taking that approach where you've got your big overworld. There's stuff to do in the overworld, things to find, enemies to fight, but that's not the whole game. That's just one piece of the puzzle. The other half of it is going into the cyberspace levels, which are the more traditional boost levels that you would see in more recent titles like Generations and Forces. Hopefully they're not as bad as Forces. Speaking of Forces, though, based on the trailer, that was our first footage of the Switch version of Sonic Frontiers. It looks like a competent port. You can obviously tell it's a Switch version. You can see the difference with like the foliage density and the pop-in and whatnot, but it doesn't look bad. It looks like it's going to be a decent port, which you couldn't say for Sonic Forces, and that wasn't a great game to begin with anyway, but even Colors Ultimate had its struggles on the Switch, so it's nice to see them giving the Switch a little extra love to make sure it runs right. I'll probably end up getting it on Xbox just out of an abundance of caution, but it does look a lot better than any of the Sonic ports to this point.
That's probably a safe bet. What about Disney Dreamlight Valley?
Of all the games they announced in this Direct, this was certainly one of them.
Yeah, Disney's just just trying to get their piece of the pie.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna do something, right? They're like, hey, let's get a game out there. I feel like this is their game that they're getting out there for having it in a Direct like this. Good on them, I guess. I'm not head over heels for that one, but it's there.
It's there. But you know what else was there? And this one was a lot more exciting. Again, this hot and cold cadence that Directs like to do after something big. They kind of give you a moment to catch your breath. We had Live Alive, and now we know for sure it's pronounced Live Alive. So there's that. But the big part of this, we know a lot about this game already. It was an HD 2D remake of a Japan-only SNES game that used a lot of like the Mode 7 3D technology. So it's really cool looking game on the original hardware, but just a perfect fit for the HD 2D engine. And specifically in this Direct, they announced that we're getting a demo with 3 of the stories. All of your save progress in those 3 stories. I think it's the first chapter of each of the stories. And you can, like most of the Square Enix games that they've been launching, you'll be able to transfer over that data to the full game once it comes out. And the demo is already out, so you can check it out now.
Have you?
I have it downloaded. I have not played it yet. The one thing, I don't know what it is with me. Like, I feel like when I was younger, this is something I would have jumped all over. But nowadays, whenever they release these types of demos, and it was like this for the Dragon Quest XI demo too, where like there was a 10-hour demo and you could transfer your data over to the main game, but I really never got into it. I don't want to start a demo and then have my momentum and progress halted until the game's release, Like, I just something about that just doesn't appeal to me. I'd rather continue playing a game that's finished and I know I can keep going on versus something that I don't know when I'm going to be cut off from and have to wait for the full release.
That's totally fair. I could see both sides, being beneficial just because, even if you didn't get to play, like for instance, Dragon Quest XI and having, all that playtime you could sink in on the demo, at least you can carry over some of that. I think, if I recall, Octopath also did that.
Yep, Octopath did that as well. Well, they had a couple demos for Octopath.
Right.
A lot, and I think Bravely Default 2 had a very similar situation where, like, the first couple demos, they're just mostly just trying to get feedback for how people think the game's going, and then try to implement those changes into the main game. Things like quality of life stuff, they implement like a lot of the popular feedback for those. And then whatever the final demo for those games is is going to be basically on the final build, and that's the one that usually lets you move your progress over to the final game. It's a great model, and I love it. I think it's awesome when they do that. Just for me personally, I would usually just rather wait until the final product is out because I've already got enough stuff to play anyway, and I don't want my momentum getting killed if I happen to reach the end of the demo and I'm just like, well, what now?
Yeah, I'm part of the crowd of people. I know you exist out there. I can't be the only one, but that doesn't like to have the name demo under a game title in his library. Like, it kind of makes me feel like really, just buy the game.
It's really good for, like, especially younger players who maybe don't have that type of disposable income that us grown adults do. So it's a funny model with gamers where it's like the younger you are, the more time you have to play games, the less money you have to buy games. And then the older you are, the more money you have to buy games, but the less time you have to play them. And that kind of rings true. So this is for that former crowd where they've got plenty of time to try stuff out and see what they like, but they have to be more selective with what they ultimately purchase. So it's great. I'm excited for it. I can't wait till the game itself releases, but unfortunately it happens, I believe, a week before Xenoblade Chronicles 3. This is going on my backlog of both purchases and plays.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even just going with what you just spoke to, that is a very father comment, yeah, I mean, you should know, right? Especially with children of your own. I'm sure not like they can just throw the money around and have a backlog. And you know what? At the same time, it kind of gives you a bit more appreciation. I know as a kid, I would work on a game, whether that be that one game I sold 5 games for or saved up money for, and I feel like, but yeah, I'll leave that there, not to get too distracted. We've got Doraemon Story of Seasons, Friends of the Great Kingdom, which looks like a pretty neat game. I love anything that has to do with Japanese lore, and this seems to kind of open that up. Do you know what kind of style game this one's going to be?
Yeah, this is a farming sim. So this is the second of the farming sims that we got in this direct, and it won't be the last. A lot of farming sims. And Doraemon, of course, is big in Japan, so this is one of those that will probably do well over there, and maybe not a whole lot of people on this side of the ocean will really give too much attention to.
It is a story of seasons, though, so does that mean it is part of that?
Yeah, it's part of that franchise, yep.
Okay. That's pretty neat.
It's kind of like the Warrior series almost, where it's like they've got the template and the format, and they're just kind of skinning it with the characters and maybe some elements from the franchise that's being injected into it.
I gotcha. So it's just more of like a theme that they're going for there, but just another entry in the series. But yeah, no, I'm glad that we get more Japanese titles these days rather than waiting for a patch or something like that. So yeah, that's neat.
For sure. And then right after that, they showed off Minecraft Legends, which we did talk about in our Xbox presentation, part of the last episode. Confirmed for Switch. I'm pretty sure everybody kind of expected that. Anything Minecraft is going to be on as many consoles as possible, despite the fact that it's owned by Microsoft and they have their own console. That's just kind of their business model. Minecraft prints money. So the more consoles you have, the more money you can print. So cool that is to get a confirmation here that it is going to be on the Switch. But after this, though, we have Dragon Quest Treasures finally got its big blowout. I don't want to say revealed. It did get revealed before, but we didn't see a whole lot of like gameplay or how exactly it would work. But this is one that I definitely had my eye on. So it was nice to finally see full gameplay of it. It's kind of like action RPG with maybe a bit of a Pokemon elements to it. It almost reminded me of the old Dragon Quest Monsters games, like on the DS. Where it was, you had to collect them and they were your party members.
Yeah, I remember that. The DQM series of games, which actually was also more on the, in Japan rather than on our side. So this is another good one to get our hands on.
Yeah, and it was announced for, I believe, December 6th, early December. So we finally got our first big game slated for December, and almost every month has a big release now. confirm. Splatoon in July. We got Nier and the Rabbids game in October. November, we're just kind of assuming Pokemon Scarlet and Violet will be in there. That's kind of their traditional slot for the year. And Dragon Quest Treasures here in December.
The good timing for that, too.
For sure. We also had another big announcement. We finally heard more about the Portal Companion Collection, which is, of course, Portal 1 and 2, ported to the Switch. It basically shadow dropped same day. So on the day of this direct, June 28th.
Oh, wait, it was this was released that same day, right?
Yep. Yes, it was, June 28th.
How cool.
As soon as the presentation ended, you could download it from the eShop for $20.
You can't do online co-op, right? Is it just a split screen?
I don't know, actually.
I ask just because I know that'd be fun, but, I don't know if I know that's kind of probably asking too much because they're just kind of porting these things over,
Local split screen and online multiplayer. There you go.
Whoa.
So you could do 2 Switches if you each have a copy of the game, so you get your own screen. You could do split screen on the same Switch, or just do it online.
That's awesome. Now that's something I'd definitely love to pay for if we're gonna.
Oh yeah.
If we get some time in the future, I'd love to play with you sometime. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm down.
I haven't played the second one all the way through, and I know that one was really fun.
Me neither.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I beat the first one, but I only got maybe 2 hours into Portal 2, so it'll be fun to actually complete it this time. So that was cool. I've got that on my Switch loaded up. But we also got a really interesting new announcement from Square Enix. They're really putting in some good stuff on the Switch. It was another farming sim. It was our third and final farming sim of the night. But this one looks really good. I am 80% gonna buy this on day one. It was called Harvestella, which is basically Square Enix's take on the Rune Factory formula, where it's a farm simulator, but also action RPG elements as well. So you kind of alternate between the 2 different modes, and it looks really, really good. I think this is the Tokyo RPG Factory developing this one.
I was a bit distracted when it came to the very end of the direct, just because I had been waiting for one particular announcement. I did see this, but by the time this had been announced or talked about, I think my eyes were a bit glazed over. But just judging from what you're saying, I kind of look into it just because this isn't just another. Is it kind of like a Harvest Moon RPG?
I think more closer to Rune Factory, where there is the life and the farm sim, but there's action RPG elements as well. So where you go out in the field and you're fighting monsters and things like that. It's a gorgeous looking game though, so it looks like a lot of people in the chat were like, "Oh, so better Rune Factory?" Because Rune Factory 5, while it's a fun game, it's definitely not the most polished or amazing looking game. So this one kind of already one-ups it in the visuals department just from that first trailer alone. But if the gameplay is also as good, then we got a winner on our hands.
Okay, yeah. No, looking at it now, I see a bit more what you're talking about with the art style. I do recall this actually being talked about. And I wonder if it'll just be exclusive to Switch. I mean, I like the RPG aspect. The character portraits look pretty neat. And I ask because, I don't know, I feel like, yes, I am one of those people who likes to have more shadows to his objects and things like that. And I know the Switch kind of has to make some sacrifices, but I think it'd be a really fun game and maybe become a new series of games too if it's successful enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it looks really good. It looks like it could be a more polished Rune Factory. I do believe it's a Switch console exclusive. It's also coming out on Windows, but I don't think any other console is getting it outside of the Switch.
That's good that it's on PC then as well.
Oh, and it looks like it's going to have a class system as well. There will be 3 classes you can switch between: Fighter, Mage, and Shadow Walker. This wasn't announced in the presentation. This is stuff that from a press release.
After the fact?
Yeah.
Okay. I gotcha. Well, this is neat. I mean,
I'm about it. It looks good.
That makes me have a bit higher hope for the gameplay mechanic that it might introduce, that might have a bit more
customization for the combat side of it.
Exactly, just a bit more varied and layered and just more to it rather than just having it tacked on kind of thing,
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I didn't even know about the class systems until about 15 seconds ago. So that's a really cool addition, and you can switch between them freely. So maybe it's I mean, Square Enix knows how to handle jobs on RPGs, so I'm not even going to question that. But since there's only 3, maybe it's a little bit because it's geared towards more a casual audience from an action and RPG perspective. So seeing what you could do with the customization and the mixing and matching abilities and whatnot will be fun to check out.
For sure, yeah. Even looking into that further, it looks like the jobs that you mentioned are switched instantly in battle.
Whoa. Okay.
So it's kind of like
hot swapping your loadout.
Yeah, like Bravely Default, but it's in the battle kind of thing where you can just switch, and I mean that makes me think that they could use that for a wide variety of strategy as well.
And maybe we'll get some like DLC classes or something with more nods to like their other series, the Final Fantasy, of course. Maybe you can get like a Red Mage DLC class or a Dragoon.
Yeah, this is neat. I'm happy about it. The more we talked about it, I'm already learning more about it, and I'm looking forward to it. Did they have a release date on this one too?
Actually, November 4th. So there we go. We got our first official November big game. Well, I don't know how big this will be. This looks more like a AA type of release, but it does look good.
Something you get with Pokemon in the same month kind of thing. It just looks like it has its own personality, and I think that's a big one. You come out with a brand new game, and it's like the first of its kind, at least in a series or perhaps on its own, and you need to have that established sense of identity. And I feel like they kind of knocked it out with the presentation. You're right.
Absolutely, just that one trailer. Personality is a good way to describe it. Like it has its own identity. I can't be more excited for this one. It looks like it's going to be a good one. But if we're going to talk about exciting announcements, we have to bring the show to the close with their big one more thing. And
what's that?
I know this is something we kind of expected and hoped for. I said in our last episode that I would lose my mind if these weren't announced, but thankfully they were, and I've called off my snipers from the Atlas HQ. We got Persona 5 Royal, Persona 3 Portable, and Persona 4 Golden announced for Nintendo Switch. So there it is. After years of people port begging Atlas and trying to get them to see reason and say, hey, this prints money, right? Atlas finally made a good business decision and ported all 3 of the games to Nintendo Switch, and this kind of busts down the door for Persona 6 being a multi-platform release whenever that might be. I wouldn't be surprised to see an announcement maybe next year or 2024. They've got to be working on it at least. But at least for now, Joker and Smash, the prophecy's been fulfilled. We have his game on Switch now.
Of course, you have those that would say, but strikers. But obviously there's also there's also fans who talk about some of the frame rate drops in that game being unplayable, but I've had a good friend of mine play through the entire game on Switch, and he plays it handheld, and it was great. And looking cool, Atlas. You did it. I thought it was a great way to really wrap it all up at the very end, and I mean, it was a little cheesy with Morgana and Teddy, and the animation for it was pretty. I don't know.
It was cursed. I don't know what they were doing with that model. I'm glad you pointed it out because, like, Morgana he didn't look too good.
I was like, okay, I'm glad that they got the voices and stuff for him, but the animation for that was just But hey,
little goofy.
Yeah. I know that.
Thankfully, the games look better than that.
much better, and we don't have release dates, but for the other 2 games, just the P5R. But I am going to be looking forward to playing these on the big screen when it comes to the more portable original versions. Like now, I can kind of put my PS Vita to just sleep for a while. Like I might just go back to it to play. I don't know. But yeah.
I hope they do make a change for both the Xbox and the Nintendo Switch releases for Persona 5 Royal. I hope they give us an option to play Last Surprise as the default battle thing. One thing that bugged me when I tried to play Royal on PS4 was that if you got a, I forget what it's called, but like a preemptive strike before you entered a battle, it would play the new theme. And in order to hear Last Surprise, you'd have to enter battle without getting that advantage first.
And that's actually one thing I love about Strikers is that Strikers introduced having all of them randomly happen like it was a music player.
And you could create a playlist.
Yes!
Yeah. That's how I want to see it implemented in Persona 5 Royal, especially because I know you could download the old songs from previous Persona games to play in Persona 5.
Yeah, no, you're right. You can get those. Like, it's like music packs.
The little DLC packs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that they can do. Did you play Persona 5 Royal all the way through?
No, not even close. So I think I got towards the end of Kamoshida's dungeon, and I just kind of fell off of it.
The same thing happened to me. And that's just because the beginning of that game, once you play it once...
It's a bit of a slog.
I know people love playing the game a million times, so I really can't feel that's how everybody will feel. But I'm glad that you can relate to that just because it's a bit longer of a commitment when you start a Persona game, and they're all kind of like that, where it takes about an hour roughly, and then, that first dungeon is just so iconic. It's hard to forget it, So it's really fresh in my memory. Now, one thing I do want to say for anybody who hasn't played P5R and has played Persona 5, or maybe hasn't played Persona 5, from everyone that I've introduced Persona to, and they've started out with 5, or they've played 5, and they've heard that I've only played 5 and not the Royal, they always hit me with the, oh yeah, you haven't played the game then. And it strikes me every time I hear it, because I think about it and I'm like, well, Persona 4 Golden had some really cool content, but I never felt like it was detrimental to the story. It just felt like something nice to have added on, and some clarity was given. But with Persona 5 Royal, it actually sounds like this is the game, and that Persona 5 was not... Like, it can't even be compared to it, in other than just obviously it being like a better version, almost entirely.
It's kind of like Pokemon Sun and Moon versus Ultra Sun and Moon. Like, they're technically kind of the same game, but they go down completely different paths that, like, by the end of the game...
That's true.
The end game for both of those games is entirely different, and there's a lot more stuff added on to Ultra Sun and Moon versus the vanilla Sun and Moon. So I think that's a pretty good comparison for 5 Royal. I know the content's there. That's definitely not one of the reasons I stopped playing it. I know it's not just a complete run through of P5 again with just a couple extras in there. There's a whole third semester added to it. So it is chock full of content, but let me tell you, having it in a portable form factor is going to make it so much easier to play. I don't have to commit to sitting down in front of a console.
Yeah.
With the whole TV setup. It's so much easier to do it that way. And you brought this up last time too. It just, Persona feels right on a portable. I'm one of those people that you got into Persona. I remember you gave me my first copy of Persona 4 Golden on my Vita, and I still have it, and it's an amazing experience. I'm so glad I decided to give it a try. And yeah, man, it's going to be great. Coming out, I believe, October 21st. Yeah, it's a little over a week before my birthday. I'm going to treat myself. I hope it gets a special edition on Switch, but I don't think it will. I think they would have announced that by now. It would be nice. We'll see what happens, but if not, either way, it's still a day one buy.
Maybe something cool will happen. They'll wait till P3P is out, and then when that's out, they might have like a physical all-in-one kind of thing, which would be super dope, because then you could just, have one. Imagine all of them being on a cart. I know that sounds like, some pipe dream fantasy stuff, but I'm gonna dream. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share before we close?
There's just a lot of good stuff here. It made me not miss a full-size Nintendo Direct, and I think that's the biggest success they could have had with this, because let me tell you, as soon as they announced that the Direct was going to be a mini and a partner Direct, everyone just was starting to sharpen their pitchforks and light their torches. But they really knocked it out of the park, and I think it's also cool that Nintendo decided to let the third parties carry E3 for them.
100%. Yeah. No, really happy about the third party stuff. I think it's actually really nice that they're upfront about it, Like, you kind of know what to expect, and they're giving them credit, before they even have their moment in the spotlight, which, it's a bit better than Persona 5 Royal being, released, or I'm sorry, announced at an Xbox thing, it's kind of like, wait, huh? Okay, money, got it.
That almost felt like a stab in the back.
Yeah.
But once I saw it there, like,
everyone kind of had an idea.
Most people, once they saw that, they're like, the writing's on the wall.
Right.
If it's coming to Xbox, a console infamous for not having JRPG support, there's no way on this green earth that they weren't going to put it on the console that is currently selling the fastest and has the highest level of support and sales for JRPG games. Like, it, even Atlas couldn't say no to that. They couldn't fumble the bag that hard.
Yeah, and in hindsight, I just like the transparency that Nintendo has, where we didn't really see that happening with Xbox. Like, it was kind of like a surprise, and I guess now we can kind of tell, like, okay, they'll be playing the screw the rules, I have money card. Thanks, Kaiba. So I feel like for me, having that straightforwardness from Nintendo is really, really kind, and it shows with how they pulled this one off. So thank you, Nintendo, and thank you all the third parties for this one. I still stand by my B grade, and I'm pretty happy with what we got. So yeah, looking forward to these releases at the end of the year and whatever comes next.
I mean, B's still more than anybody could have hoped for on the announcement of this Direct. So most people will take a B from a mini partner showcase. And
for sure.
This kind of makes me think we're probably going to get our traditional September main Direct as well. So we'll see a lot more first party stuff here. Like, it's so crazy that so many first party games so many big games in general, not just for Nintendo, got delayed to next year. But with the schedule, with what we know now after this E3 season, like, we're going to have our plates full regardless, even though we're not going to have things like Starfield. That was pushed to next year. We had Breath of the Wild 2 pushed to next year. Final Fantasy 16, that was another one that was announced to come out next year. So we thought this was going to be kind of a bare second half of the year, but that hasn't been the case. And like I said, September, we'll probably hear about a lot of those bigger games like Bayonetta 3, your Metroids, your Zeldas. Zelda may have been delayed to launch next year, but that doesn't mean we're not going to get any information until next year. So we got a lot to look forward to. This has been a overall really good E3 season, despite the fact that there was no official E3 outside of the the Summer Games Fest. Everyone had something good to show off and a decent chunk of games.
Yeah, and I have a hunch that we might get maybe Wind Waker or Twilight Princess this holiday season, and if that's the case, it'll be a really good way to get us into Zelda next year. So fingers crossed for that, and I guess hey, that's about all we got today. I thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you everyone for listening and for joining me to talk video games with Zero today. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kraken Skulls Gaming, and hit the notification bell to be notified when a new episode drops. Also, feel free to like, dislike, or leave any feedback or opinions you might have in the comments below. Take care, everyone, and happy gaming!
Until next time.
You never see it coming.